Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints represent a faith practiced by millions, a faith which has also inspired its share of controversy.
I think if you look at Brigham Young's whole life, well, it's a conundrum.
It almost seems like he's a human.
Once Brigham Young puts his hand to the plow, there is no looking back.
I'm Camrey Fox, and together with John Wilson and Professor Daniel Peterson, we work to uncover unexpected twists in the character of a man that we thought we already knew.
It's not that unusual for that time, so...
What are you doing here? You guys are crazy!
I'm starting to think that Brigham Young is one of the most misunderstood historical figures in early American history. And the goal of our series, Becoming Brigham, is to understand him a little bit better. In our last episode, my partner John Wilson was visiting with Sam Weston, an expert on the martyrdom of Joseph and his brother Hyrum Smith.
I'm a dead man.
But isn't it true that there was no blood on the back of his clothing when they carried him out and inspected the body?
No blood to the naked eye, I'll say.
And Dr. Daniel Peterson sent me to talk to a shorthand expert, LaJean Carruth. LaJean gets past the hearsay and rumors and goes straight to Brigham's actual words, and it has been fascinating.
So Brigham Young is known by many as the American Moses. Do you feel like that's a good representation of him?
No. Moses led a single, large group of rebellious people to political freedom. He never entered the promised land. They wouldn't accept the gospel he taught them. The cry of his heart, the longing of his soul, was to establish Zion. Brigham Young was Enoch. He strove with everything he had. His dream was to establish Zion. His favorite scripture, I haven't done a statistical analysis, but I've read thousands of pages of his words, is if you are not one, you are not mine. He wanted to build a Zion people. He wanted to build Zion. He was Enoch. He wasn't Moses.
Was there a common theme as you read Brigham's word of what maybe was the most important to him?
Being one, that is the most common theme in his preaching. Joseph Smith, the gospel, Christ, keeping the commandments, staying out of debt, saving wheat, saying prayers. A lot of his teachings are just what we're still struggling with today.
Right.
Occasionally I hear somebody say, why aren't we getting any new doctrine? I think we're still struggling with what Brigham Young taught.
Right, we're still working on the basics.
We still are. Basic teachings. None of his teachings that he told the people to do would be foreign to us today, except for the ones with very basic lifestyle, like put a nail in the wall for your wife to hang the broom on, or that every girl should learn to spin and weave, keep the cattle out of the corn. But his teachings about how to live, none of them would be foreign to us. And we'd be very surprised they're the same things that we're taught today.
When we talk about Joseph, he's portrayed as this just spiritual giant who's constantly receiving revelation for the church and just having these miraculous experiences. Do we get that from Brigham?
Brigham was deeply, deeply, deeply spiritual. He was asked even in his day why he didn't write revelations like Joseph Smith. And he said if he wrote a revelation and the saints accepted it and did not live it, they would be under condemnation. And that's why he didn't write Revelation. But he also said, and this is a quote, he says, why, bless your heart, souls, and gizzards, I couldn't live a day without the light of revelation. He was constantly receiving revelation, and he knew it. He sought the will of the Lord. He was a deeply, deeply spiritual and deeply dedicated to the Lord. This hasn't come up through history, and I'm not sure why.
One thing is I've learned a lot about church history that can be powerful and painful in different regards is interactions with women of the time. We see times when women are not respected, and I'm curious if you found anything about Brigham Young's relationship with women and how he viewed them.
Brigham Young was decades ahead of his time in regards to women.
Really?
He wanted them taught. He wanted them in the telegraph office. He wanted them working in the stores. Brigham Young has gotten a lot of criticism for women.
Yeah.
But he criticized the men far, far, far more than he criticized the women.
Really?
And he criticized the men for their treatment of their wives, that they weren't making their lives comfortable.
So in 6 Days in August, the film, we see Brigham Young really focused on getting the temple built. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Brigham Young and the temple.
Unfortunately, we have very little shorthand before 1851. George D. Watt came to Nauvoo. He was teaching shorthand in 1842, we know. He arrived in the Salt Lake Valley in September 1851 and immediately began taking shorthand. And the talk about the temple then is constant.
Really?
Constant. I have the shorthand from the groundbreaking and the cornerstone laying of the Salt Lake Temple. And in the sermons, it's constant to build the temple, to build the temple, to build the temple. He said, why do we gather the saints? We gather them here to receive their ordinances, their endowments, their temple ordinances. And this was very, very, very important to him.
In today's world, how do you feel that Brigham Young has been misrepresented through his words?
A lot of what I have transcribed has never been transcribed. So we have words spoken by Brigham Young, John Taylor, Heber C. Kimball, that nobody could read. So the material that was completely unknown, that's valuable, because we know that much of what was said wasn't really said. Doctrine, Brigham Young's statements about himself, a lot of those weren't transcribed. And learning that a lot of the things that people find offensive, he didn't really say.
So we've talked about how you have come to view Brigham Young. I'm curious how Brigham viewed himself, if you picked up on any of that.
Yes. He was humble. He knew he was a prophet. We talk about Brigham Young the colonizer. We forget about Brigham Young the prophet. He knew he was the Lord's prophet. He said, there's no more goodness in me than in other people, but I am here. I am here, and I know the way to lead the saints. Seeking the Lord's will was extremely important to him. And that's important to know. We need to know him as a person. Brigham Young knew he was human. He knew about his tongue. Once he said, if you see me just standing quietly, I'm trying to get a hold of myself. He said he was as naturally tempted as any other man. But the cry of his soul, the longing of his soul, was to find the truth, live the truth, and serve God, and help others. But he knew he was human. But his heart was pure. He wanted to build Zion. That is Brigham Young, that I've come to know and love.
Thank you.
What did you think about your conversation with LaJean?
It was amazing. She is brilliant. Her mind stores so much information. And it was really cool to talk to her because it seems like she really knows who Brigham is and has gotten to know him through his own words.
Well, and that's an important distinction. It's through his words.
Right, a primary source.
And those are always the best.
Sometimes it seems like I can ask Dr. Peterson any question and he will have an answer. Or if he doesn't, he will know someone who does. Meanwhile, my partner John Wilson was visiting with another smart guy named Sam Weston.
In our last episode, Sam and I discussed Willard Richards' account of the martyrdom. One theory stated that the mob had returned sometime after Hyrum was dead, shooting him in the back. Sam's theory was that he had been hit first by a bullet coming from the window. The lack of blood on his clothing had me wondering about the theory. I asked Sam about it.
But isn't it true that there was no blood on the back of his clothing when they carried him out and inspected the body?
No blood to the naked eye, I'll say. I've got actual photos of his clothes. Let me show them to you. Have you seen his clothes before?
No.
These were actually donated to the church in 2014. So the church hasn't had them until then.
Oh my gosh.
So here's a picture of Hyrum's vest from the back. So you can blow that up as big as you want, and there's virtually no bloodstains. Here's all his clothes kind of laid out together. And so where the big blood stains are, on his shirt especially, they're under the vest. If he bled out and he had his vest on, how could that just get his shirt bloody and not the vest, is the point I'm making. So these are high-resolution photographs.
No.
And you can get online and blow these up, extreme detail. And I've looked over every square inch, and there's no blood stains on the pants or the vest anywhere. So everybody said when Hyrum was shot, he fell on his back, never to move again. He stayed on his back till they moved him out and put him on a wagon to carry him over the Hamilton Tavern, where the bodies of Joseph and Hyrum were unloaded. Artois Hamilton helped build rough oak boxes for him. They were laying on their back the whole time. They put him in these boxes. They were packed with ice, we believe, to preserve the bodies so they didn't decompose until they had a viewing. They stayed on ice till they got to the mansion house. So that tells me either the blood's been added or the clothes were washed. I can't answer that.
Sam believes that the blood on the vest never dried and was then washed away.
Even the curator at the Church History Museum, who's examined the clothes and is in charge of them, says they've been washed, probably more than once.
Yeah.
I had one last question for Sam.
That's fascinating. So now there's been a recent film that came out that is asserting that Brigham orchestrated the killing of Joseph and Hyrum.
Right.
Nonsense?
In my opinion,
or the greatest coup.
Opinion it is. I think it's pretty easy to debunk that theory. And, I mean, without going into it really deep. Number one, Brigham Young wasn't in Carthage on June 27th. He was in Boston. He'd been back east for several months. If Brigham Young was intent on killing Joseph, why would he leave his family and endure the hardships of traveling back east and proselyting and campaigning for Joseph Smith to become president? That doesn't make sense right there. Brigham Young stood up for Joseph probably more than any other person in our church. He was a defender of Joseph. And the way that movie portrays what happened, a spoiler alert, John Taylor and Willard Richards killed Hyrum and Joseph in the jail room that day. And that poses a lot of problems to even prove that could happen.
Yeah.
Why would you pick that way to kill somebody at the peril of your own life? I mean, if they were smart, all they would have had to done is leave the jail and the mob would have taken care for them.
Right.
Okay, there was 9 or 11 men indicted for the murder of Joseph and Hyrum. Right. And they actually had a trial the next May.
Yeah.
Several of the men had disappeared, so they weren't indicted for the trial. But if you're on trial being accused of murder, you would have known that the men in the room were killed by their partners, their buddies in there. I mean, why would you not challenge that? I didn't kill him. These other guys killed him before we got there. I mean, You don't hear anything like that.
Yeah.
In fact, the people that killed Joseph and I were bragging about it. Most of them boasted and bragged about what they'd done. So I think it's garbage myself. But
just like you've done, they have to stand up to the accounts that have the strongest historical weight, right? Like you said, it's the earliest account, closest to the time. So these are primary sources that must be reckoned with when you're piecing together the story of this happened. There's really nothing that stands on in any of the actual records that we have. Sam, thank you so much. I think I learned more about the martyrdom in our sitting here than I have in my entire life. Thank you so much for spending the time with me.
Thanks for giving the opportunity and giving a chance to defend Willard's account.
Absolutely.
That should be our foremost in study of what happened is Willard's account.
All right.
It's easy to find.
All right, Johnny, what's the verdict? Did Brigham kill Joseph and Hyrum?
This will shock you. No.
What?
We kind of knew that going in.
Yeah.
But as I was in the interview, I was thinking, what we really need to know is what was the relationship between Brigham and Joseph, and how does that teach us about who Brigham was?
Yeah, and I think maybe we ought to do something more about the politics of Nauvoo and Hancock County, Carthage, Warsaw, all those sorts of things that were going on at the time. Yeah, whose interest would it be in to have Joseph dead? And also, what role, if any, did Brigham Young play in any of that?
Yeah, I'd also like to learn more about Joseph and Emma's relationship leading up to Joseph's death.
Well,
all lovely ideas. It's a shame we're so smart. Let's do this.
Okay.